solving equations and inequalities. They're essentially the same thing, so we're going to show you an example with an inequality. There's actually one less step if it's an equal sign. Inequality just means this, which means less than or greater or equal to. The line underneath it means the or equal to. Greater than would be facing the other direction. So if you need some help with your inequalities, just let me know and I'll make you a video of the difference of the symbols for inequalities. But we're going to be solving equations and inequalities, so we need some steps to get started. And my first step is to simplify each side one side at a time as much as possible. My two sides, basically, you can, if you need to separate it, you can draw a line through underneath the inequality, and you're going to keep that inequality. But we're going to think of it one side at a time. So now I have the left side, which is the 5 times x plus 3 plus 9, and the right side, which is 3 times x minus 2 plus 6. So I'm looking at the problem. I have to think of order of operations, and order of operations tells me I need to do parentheses first. So I need to do these parentheses. I look at x plus 3. They're not like terms. Can't do anything. So I have to get rid of the parentheses, and there's stuff attached to it. So there's the 5 in front, and that has to get multiplied through. 5 times x. There's really a 1 there. So 5 times 1x is just 5x. And then I'm not done because I'm not at the end of the parentheses. So then I'm going to go to the 3. So 5 times positive 3 is a positive, and it's 15. And then I have to, remember my steps to simplify each side as much as possible, so I have to look at it and say, oh, I can do a little bit more. I've got some like terms here. I've got these two that can get combined together. So a positive 15 plus 9 is just going to get more positive. So I have plus 24, and I have 5x. So now I'm down to two terms. One's got an x. One doesn't, so they're not like terms. Can't do anything else with it. So going to the right side, I'm going to do the same thing. I've got to look at order of operations. Order of operations, remember, it tells you that you left to right, but you have to start with parentheses. So starting with my parentheses, I'm looking at an x minus 2, not like terms. Can't do anything else, so I got to take that 3 that's attached to it, multiply it through. 3 times 1x is 3x. 3 times a negative 2, I've got a positive 3 times a negative 2. So positive times a negative is negative. And then 3 times 2 is just 6. And then don't forget you still have this plus 6 hanging out at the end. So looking again at it, first step says I have to simplify as much as possible. So I'm looking for a like term, in which case it's a negative 6 and a positive 6. So negative 6 plus 6. So if I was thinking I went down 6 steps, and then I went back up 6 steps, I'd be right back where I started, so it's really a 0. So I'm stuck with a 3x. Okay. Remember to keep your symbol in between them, which in this case is a less than or equal to. And that is all of the first step. Step 2, because this is so much fun. Step 2 is if you have both x's and y's, or x's and plain old numbers, if you have a variable, you're going to look for, you want to get them together. So I like to move the x's together first. If possible, or if possible. The letters together. So you set the side looks moving. In this case, I have my 5x and my 3x. The 3x is really the smaller of the two, but if I move that over, I have nothing left on there, so I have a 0, which can be more work. So I'm going to just decide I'm going to move the 5x over. And then the step, once I've decided it, write it underneath itself. Okay, right underneath itself. So this is a 5x. Make it opposite. Instead of a positive, it's a negative. So I'm going to write the negative 5x. Last little bit is write the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so I wrote a minus and then basically add down. That's a sneaky one little step with 5 little parts underneath it. So if I'm adding down, make a big old line, 5x minus 5x, they cancel out. Nothing is underneath the 24, so I still have a 24. I still have that less than or equal to. And 3x minus 5x is if I was 3 steps above, go 5 below that, I'd get a negative 2x. Okay? So that's our second step. We've got all the x's together on one side, and in this case they're on the right. I don't care if they're on the right or the left. I really just want to get them together. So then step 3, if there are still numbers on, plain old numbers on both sides. Move 1. Our plain numbers on both sides, move the one that it would be like if I had a negative 2x plus 5 or something like that. I do the same steps as I do 2 on how to move it. I write the side it's moving, write it under itself, make it opposite, write the exact same thing. But since I don't have, I just have a plain old number and an x term, I don't have anything to do with step 3, so I don't have to do anything. So I get to move straight on to step 4. We'll show you another example that requires you to do step 3, but in this case it doesn't. Step 4. Get right when you write that. That was awful. Okay, so then if there's a coefficient, remember the coefficient is the big number attached to the front of the letter. So in this case, my coefficient is a negative 2. If there's a coefficient on the letter, divide both sides by it. So in this case, I'm going to divide. And remember, a fraction bar is just a short way of saying divided by. And I'm going to say my coefficient was a 2x. So I'm going to divide by a negative 2x and divide by a negative 2x. Now, there's a very important note with this. Note. I'm going to really big down here. If you have an inequality, and divide, and I'm going to say or multiply because they're essentially the same thing. Okay, to the right. Just like that. So that's the first thing with my note. Since I'm dividing by a negative here, because of that. So, and then I would just actually do the thing. A positive 24 divided by a negative, positive divided by negative is negative. And 24 divided by 2 is 12. And then this, so the same top and bottom, they cancel out, and I'm left with an x. That is a perfectly great answer. Or, if we like to see the letter going first, I have the x. And I have to pay attention to the inequality. What is at the x? Is it the open part or the pointy part? And it's the pointy part. So I need to keep the pointy part to the x. And the negative 12. Chances are, if you have multiple choice, you're going to see the x first. So you have to recognize that this is the exact same thing.